One of the biggest problems when shopping for an office chair is finding a good option with a headrest. Whether it fits poorly, has uncomfortable material, just doesn't hold its position well. There are a lot of things that can make a headrest bad. We've got a bunch of chairs here with headrests. We're going to go through them and rank them for you.
We've also got a couple bonus items at the end that I'm super excited about for a chair that doesn't actually come with a headrest from the factory, so stick around for that.
ErgoChair Pro. Ooh, from Autonomous.
All right, your take.
I'm not a fan of the chair in general, but I do think that the headrest is probably the best thing about the chair, in my opinion. It's probably the one thing on the chair that I could actually use. And so for me, it's kind of just a middle-of-the-road headrest, not super comfortable. I don't love the material. It's a bit abrasive, and I found the adjustments to be not super easy to do. So I'd probably put it somewhere in C tier just because it wasn't terrible, but I don't think it's super good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with pretty much everything you said there. It's probably one of the better features of the chair, but for me, the mesh material is just super abrasive. So I noticed that right away, not comfortable on my neck, and it kind of pulls the hair out of my head and neck, which isn't great. It definitely has some range to it with height adjustment, pivot adjustment. This is a tough one for me, being the first too. Let's get Robert's take before we give a
I think it's a nice size, so it's like it fits even if you're kind of moving around a little bit, so I like that. It does you kind of press into it nicely, so it's like it has a good, kind of comfortable feel. It's firm, but not too firm. I don't necessarily hate the material. It's not necessarily catching my hair, but it's also not as soft as some of the other ones we're going to talk about.
So where are you putting it?
I actually would probably go B on this.
B tier, wow, right out of the gate. I think I'm going to put this at C tier for me. It seems fair, right in the middle of the road.
Yeah, I'm thinking C too. So maybe C plus. We'll average Robert's B.
C plus, that's good.
Yeah,
there we go.
Above average.
Okay, what do we got? The Clatina, one of our favorite low-cost options. We actually didn't have the headrest on it when we did the previous tier list.
It's true, but now we do. I got to say right away, so I was the first one to get it, pulled it out of the box. The headrest is like $40, and of all the headrests and these less expensive options, I found this thing was actually, it's kind of like the chair. Like it seems like a really good value. There's a lot of weight to it. It feels well built, and it's comfortable. It's got good cushioning. It's got pretty decent range. I felt it fit me. There weren't any like hard edges, which is something you need to consider with these. I right away would give it a B tier on this one. I mean, from a value standpoint, comfort, it's pretty solid. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I also like that you can use it either tasking or kind of not be forced into using it if you're tasking. It's comfortable, it's big, the adjustments were easy to do, which is surprising for a chair at this price. Like Greg said, it kind of just goes in line with the chair. I'd have no problem putting this headrest, honestly, in A tier. I found it to be really comfortable, one of the more comfortable headrests I've used. From a quality standpoint, I'd say maybe it comes down to a B, but I think it's pretty comfortable. So.
Yeah. I mean, it honestly is maybe even better than the chair, it feels like.
It could be. I mean, it feels solid.
Robert's in it.
Yeah, so Greg was kind of raving about this a little bit earlier, and I was like, yeah, I doubt it's really that great. This is very nice. This is the first time I've sat in it, and I would go A for this. It's very comfortable. It's like, it adjusts pretty easily, but yet it doesn't like move on its own. Like I don't like when headrests just automatically kind of snap on their own into different positions, so it holds its place. It's cushioned nicely. For me, this is a A.
Going A, so I'm getting overruled here.
Wow, this is a pretty big shocker. This might be the cheapest chair on the list and
to ever hit that A tier?
A tier headrest.
There it is.
All right, next up, our chair, the BTOD Akir. What are we looking at here? The mesh headrest, the vinyl?
We got the mesh.
Mesh headrest, okay. I actually like the mesh one better than the vinyl one, just because you can sink into it a little bit more. It's not quite as soft, but I still like it more. The one thing about the Akir headrest is that it's a good option for those of you that want to be sitting fully upright and tasking. It's a bad option for those of you that want to be able to have freedom away from your headrest, because it's pretty pronounced and you kind of have to use it all the time, which is good if you like to always use a headrest. So for tasking and for pure comfort, I'd probably put it in a B range. But if you want to be relaxing and have it out of the way, it's probably going to come down because it kind of forces you to use it.
Yeah, I think with this headrest, it's funny because I'm on the opposite side with the vinyl one. I like that one more, but it's discontinued now, so that's not an option. So it's mesh only. It's aggressive. It's like really aggressive. So like Ryan's saying, it's always there, which can be a nuisance if you don't want to use it. It's got decent height range. It's got some pivot adjustment to it. It's definitely a more comfortable mesh, in my opinion, than like the ErgoChair Pro. Yeah. So I don't notice some of those things I had with it. I mean, for me, it's just a C tier. I don't really think it's overwhelming or anything. I don't think it's terrible. So
What do you think,
Yeah,
Robert?
I think I'd go C on this. I think it's a little too aggressive. It's kind of pushing me. Like if I want to recline, it's like pushing my neck a little too hard. But yet it's soft enough. It's not. I wouldn't say it's too abrasive, but.
And it's usable. Like that's the
Yeah.
big thing with aggressive. There's some you'll find in this tier list that are too aggressive, make it unusable, doesn't fit. This is just, it's aggressive and you always know it's
Yeah,
there.
if you like this chair, but you really want to have a headrest, you would not, I don't think, be disappointed by this one. So C, or I mean, maybe even higher, but C's, I think, a fair pick.
We'll go just above the autonomous. C+.
Yeah, it's definitely
Average
better.
it out.
It's definitely better than the autonomous chair.
Yeah,
So
maybe this will
and
be
that'll
like
end
down
up
here.
going further down in time. So
Uh-oh. Up next, the Leap V2 headrest.
I think the thumbnail that we have on this video like explains this best. So hopefully we can flash that up where I'm awkwardly sitting looking at the camera. It's really funny. It's weird because I love this chair. You sit
Yeah.
in this chair every day.
Every
like,
day.
This is just a chair that I absolutely love, and the headrest is expensive. So number one, like if we look at these things from like a value standpoint, I don't see any value here. It's almost $180. Is it even more now? I don't know. But
It's like the opposite of the Clatina.
yeah, 100%. So
It's super expensive, doesn't do much.
right, height adjustment, and then it gets in the way. It's way too aggressive. It's not comfortable for most positions, I don't believe, and it falls down when you use it, which I'm sure Robert will show here shortly. It just can't. It doesn't stay in position very well. So
It also feels cheap compared to the rest of the chair.
Right.
Like it's an expensive headrest that doesn't feel like it should be on a Leap chair. It feels like it should be on the Mellet, honestly. But what do
oddly
you-
enough,
yeah, what do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, Mellet definitely has this beat. I think its biggest advantage, if we are to pull a positive out of it, is I think it looks kind of nice, the fact that it's like matching with the fabric, whereas some of these other headrests, it like looks like they're an add-on and don't necessarily have the exact same material. But that's about the only positive thing I'd say. I mean, like I said earlier, I can't stand when they move on their own, and this one, you put it where it's like comfortable, then as soon as you lay back, it just moves right down so that.
but it's kind of funny that you say it matches because the actual plastic
the
material doesn't
plastic
match the
doesn't, yeah.
chair. So they don't have one that matches that chair. So you're spending $1,500 on that chair, and you have a non-matching headrest from a actual frame
Yeah,
standpoint.
so if we had
So-
a black frame, then it would match.
Then it would match well,
real nice.
yeah.
But yeah, this is not perfect. So, and this is how we purchased as a set headrest and the chair, and this is what it looks like. So,
I'm going D tier on this. I think for it's usable, so I wouldn't put it in F tier, but it's so expensive and I don't like it, so I'm going D tier.
I have a hard time not putting this in F tier just because it is so expensive. It feels so cheap. I can't use it. It's when Greg was talking about earlier with the Akir that it's usable but really aggressive. And there's some chairs that are too aggressive and you can't use. For me, that's this. It's way too aggressive. I can't even use it. It feels super cheap. When you push down on the padding, you can actually feel the two screws pretty easily in there. For me, this is an F tier product. A lot of the reason because of the value that you're getting. So that would be my take.
Tier. Robert, are you gonna save it from the F tier, or is this thing gonna be living down
I think
there?
I will actually. I think it's a D.
Okay, all right.
I could use it.
Robert doing Steelcase is solid.
Yeah,
keeping him out
keeping
of the
him in
F.
a D tier. Here we go.
What do we got next? OM Yes Chair. This is an interesting headrest because it has a height adjustment that kind of just like slides on the frame, which I don't always love because sometimes it'll slide on me when I don't want it to. But I will say that this is one of the few flatter headrest designs that I actually like to use. Just because most flat headrest designs I kind of find to be pretty useless, but this one's actually pretty comfortable just because you can kind of turn it and get it into the curve of your neck. So I actually find it to be pretty comfortable, but it doesn't feel super solid. And I don't always like that it doesn't hold its position. So more of a middle of the road ranking for me, most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think it has a surprising range on it. And like you said, those flatter designs are really good for people wanting to like recline back in their chair, kick back, and maybe watch TV or watch your computer or something like that. But because it is depth adjustable and like on some level, it really does have a lot of range, not just in its height, but in the depth adjustment, you can get it into your neck. I like it. It's not super padded. It doesn't feel like really big and cushy, but it's super comfy. So I'm curious what Robert thinks being a bit taller.
I don't even have to slide it that far up, and it feels pretty comfortable. And yeah, I agree. It's not like some of the others where it like really holds your head, like kind of holds it in place because you don't really sink into it. But it's like comfortable in the sense that kind of wherever you hit it, you're probably going to be fine. I don't love that there's still a little bit of that play. I can pretty easily move it with my head. This is like probably a low B for me, a B minus I would give it.
Ooh, he goes B minus. I feel pretty confident in a B with that. I'd stretch it A minus maybe. I probably feel comfortable B. I think Ryan's headed to B, or I don't know. Yeah.
I was going to put it in C+, just because I think for me, it's the same comfort level as the Akir, just different. I think it's a solid headrest, just not one of my favorite models.
All right, branch ergonomic chair. So can we tell the story? Just real quick. You had this chair. We bought this chair.
Well, I ordered all 3 chairs at the same time, but the ergonomic chair was on back order for like 4 or 6 weeks, but they sent the headrest immediately with the task and daily, so I had the headrest for like 6 weeks or whatever, and then we got the branch chair, and then I forgot about the headrest.
And then found it.
And then we were going to do this video, and then I found the headrest, so it was perfect timing.
Yeah, it was.
So.
But not a perfect headrest.
No,
just so
it's not, unfortunately.
So we clear that up right away.
It's like the rest of the chair, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I was really having high hopes for it, but the headrest doesn't add enough for me to even recommend the ergonomic over the 2 other chairs in their lineup. I just don't think it's very comfortable. It's kind of like the backrest where I can feel the frame. The material isn't super comfortable.
Saggy.
I just couldn't, I don't know. I can't vibe with that thing. It's just not my jam.
It feels cheap. It's only height adjustable. It doesn't fit me. I feel the frame, whether it's the top of the frame, if it's too low or too high, too low. I always find that the bottom of the frame's hitting my shoulders unless I push it up. I just could never get comfortable in it. So for me, I mean, this thing is a D tier. It's not cheap too. I think it's fairly expensive on the branch site, which kind of goes against everything else they do with their chairs, being that they're pretty affordable. So
it's a little profit center for me.
Yeah, I say D tier for me.
Yeah, that's where I was headed with it. What do you think, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm on the taller side, 6'2", a little above average maybe, but it's, for me, my head, once it goes over the top and then it hits the hard frame on the top. So, I mean, I would have to put this in the unusable range, which I guess would drop it into a F. But, I mean, I'm okay with a D because I can see for the average height, you're probably going to be a little more comfortable, but it's very flimsy though. Like you can see here, it's just kind of really shaking around. It does have the advantage, you know, if we want to talk about looks, it looks pretty nice how it's completely matching. I think it actually makes the chair look a little nicer with it on there, but I would definitely not want this on the chair if I was buying this chair.
That's that. Straight D tier then.
Yeah, D minus probably, if you think about it, if he's close to F. So Eurotech Ergohuman LE9. So just understanding these chairs, there's really a mesh version. There's a combination where it's mesh and leather, and then there's an all leather version, and you can get them with headrests, so it's either leather or mesh. So this is the leather version. Right away with me, with the Ergohuman, it's just super aggressive, like the lumbar. So the lumbar on that chair is one of the more aggressive lumbars. I feel like the headrest matches it perfect, and because of that, it's always in the way for me. Like it never is out of the way. And then it's not even that comfortable when I recline in the chair, to be honest. It's sort of, I know they do it for like tasking and kind of to pitch your eyes in the right direction looking at your monitor, so it kind of tilts your head forward. I hate that, and I don't like it. It's usable, but it's uncomfortable. So for me, it's going to be a middle of the road best case, maybe even worse.
For me, it's super similar to the Akir headrest, except for it's easier to adjust, but that makes it less solid. And so I'm constantly feeling it kind of knocked down, especially when you recline in the chair. If you recline, the headrest is definitely going to tilt up or down.
The tilt function, not the height.
Right,
yeah.
The tilt function, depending on how tall you are and how much you're pressing on it, which is really annoying because then you have to click it back and fix it. The one thing that I dislike about the leather headrest is that it's really warm. It doesn't happen very often, but every once in a while I'll use a headrest where I feel like I'm going to start sweating, and that's the case with that headrest. And so I'd have to probably put it somewhere in the low C's, just because to me it's just not quite as good of a version as the Akir headrest, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's pretty aggressive. I think, Ergohuman already has the aggressive lumbar that kind of pushes your lower back almost forward. So then it's like your shoulders hit the back, but then your neck is getting pushed back forward again with the headrest. So to me, it makes it feel like I can't find quite the right comfortable spot here. So
does it fit you?
I mean, I can get it to fit me in the right spot, but even though it like seems to fit, it doesn't really feel comfortable because it's just too aggressive. It's not like unusable, but I would put it probably at a D for me.
Ooh, the D tier. I'd probably say C minus, D plus for me too. I mean, honestly, it's I'd much rather sit in that chair without a headrest.
Yeah.
We'll go C minus then. High-end chair, Haworth Fern.
Yeah, so there's some things about the Haworth Fern chair that some people don't like here, and one of them is the headrest, and that's definitely the case for me, for sure. And that's why we actually have another one coming. I'm super excited. It's digital knit, no headrest, no lumbar. For me on this headrest, I don't think it's worth the extra cost. Again, it's not cheap when you add this headrest. And one of the things I noticed right away, it's like a rock is like the best way I can describe it. It feels like no padding, even though there's some. The shape is kind of awkward too, where it like doesn't conform to my head at all. It just sort of like hits in a really small spot. And so I could never get it comfortable, and it's always just kind of annoying. So, I mean, it's usable, but I hate to say it, but it's going to be pretty low because it's usable. It's not going to go all the way to the bottom, but I don't like it.
It has like a concaved, overstuffed feeling. It's almost like they have too much cushion in there, like so much so that it's hard. Like they needed to take some out so that you could at least sink into the foam a little bit because...
But then when you push on it, there's like, it doesn't go anywhere.
That's what I mean. You can't move. You just sit right on top of the headrest and it doesn't conform to your neck in a way because of the shape is kind of awkward. And the one thing that I dislike about it is that it feels like it takes away from the movement of the backrest because you have something sitting on top of the flexible back that is rigid that you now have to kind of fight against to move and stretch in the chair. For me, I would much prefer the chair without it, and I'm really excited we have one coming that isn't going to have a headrest because I really think it takes away from the chair. And for me, I don't think it's quite as bad as the Steelcase, but I would have to say that it has to be somewhere between D and C for me, just because I don't feel like it adds to the chair.
So I think one of the things too, real quick before Robert gives his opinion, is if I were to recommend, like, would I recommend this to someone and is it usable to me? And I'd say no, and it is usable, but I wouldn't ever want it. So I go D tier because of those two things and the price. There's like no good value coming from it. So
yeah, I mean, as Ryan was saying that about, I was moving in the chair and thinking the same thing. This is such like a chair that makes you want to be able to kind of move around and stuff, but then you can't really do it when you got this like just this hard piece that's right in your neck or back or head there. I definitely would prefer this chair without the headrest. It's exactly like they said, it's just really hard. And I kind of have to move it, like when I'm sitting up, it feels good in one spot, and then as soon as I recline, it slips up my head, and then I want to move it down, and then it's okay. Definitely not unusable, but I would put it in a D. I would definitely get this chair without the headrest.
would you recommend it to a friend?
If someone was like dying to have a headrest on their chair and they were for sure going to get the Fern, I would say okay. But I believe, they'd have free returns if you do not like it.
So if he doesn't like you that much, he's going to recommend that headrest.
Yeah.
Okay, D tier it is then. Next up, neutral posture, 8,000.
So jacked about this headrest.
Are you?
Yeah.
All right, what are you so jacked about?
Everything. This thing has more range than any other headrest in the list. It is able to flip out of the way if you don't want to use it. It will go into your neck and be a neck roll. It will go up against your head. It's super poof. It's comfy. I love it. It stays put. There's nothing I don't like about this headrest. So it's up there.
Yeah, what are you thinking, Robert?
Ooh, I didn't even get to sit down yet, but I have sat in this. Like Greg said, this is kind of, you can put it wherever you want. If you want it up high like that, then it's like, it feels pretty nice. Personally, I always like headrest down a little lower, and it also feels really nice. Like, it maybe looks, to me, it looks like super aggressive, like it's gonna be pushing me way forward, but it's really not when you're actually sitting in it. So I think this one, finally, we're gonna be able to put another chair up there with the Mellet.
So you're going A tier?
That's an A for me.
A tier. The thing that I really love about the 8,000 headrest is that you can use it in a relaxed mode and have it literally line up exactly with the backrest so that when you recline, it's good for chilling out, watching movies, being on the phone, whatever. But you can also articulate it forward and be in front of the backrest to be permanent task mode. And like Greg said, you can move it completely out of the way to never have to deal with it. I love the contour. I think it's big and spacious. It's super well padded. For me, this is an S tier headrest just because I cannot think. I was racking my brain trying to think of what I would change on the headrest to make it an S tier. And if I can't think of anything, then you've achieved S tier. And so for me, this is the best headrest I've ever seen. And so it has to be an S tier headrest.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. You look at all the other chairs that we're looking at today. We've got so many chairs with headrests. I don't know what you would change. It does everything. So S tier for me too. This is 100% S tier headrest.
Yeah, and it kind of also, it has the looks factor too, in my opinion. It fully matches the chair. The quality of the headrest matches the quality of the chair.
I just can't think of anything I don't like about it.
Yeah. So you would say A+ though, Robert, right?
Just to
I'll give it an
as
A+.
close to S as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
Next up, is this the Jarvfjallet or the Markus? Jarvfjallet.
IKEA Jarvfjallet.
Hopefully we're saying it right.
I
We're
don't
not
know if
Swedish,
we are.
so.
Yeah.
Well, how you liking those casters, Robert?
I know I'm fighting to pull it out onto the floor.
IKEA's casters are the worst. They do the safety casters where you have to sit in the chair to roll it. I don't get it. But headrest. I actually was pretty surprised with the headrest on the Jarvfjallet just because this is a $300 chair. And so expectations kind of have to be a little bit lower. But I found it to be pretty comfortable. I mean, it's soft, it's poofy, it's big, it's got height adjustment. I think it's a huge upgrade to the Markus chair. And for me, I don't know. I could see this being probably a C or maybe even a low B just because it's pretty comfortable. From a quality standpoint, I don't know if it could achieve a B, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. When you were hyping it pretty hard there, I thought you were going to go like so high, like A tier, where it was everything was, I think it was just a little bit residual from the neutral posture 8000.
Yeah, maybe.
But for me, he's 100% spot on. I mean, it's significantly better than the Markus, which is terrible, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I personally think it's a bit firm. It does have height adjustment to it. It works. It's again better than the other alternative. It's not super expensive, so we got to be conscious of that. For me, it's probably a C or D tier. It doesn't really do a lot for me because it doesn't, I don't know how to explain it other than it's just kind of there. It's not annoying, but it's not super comfy.
It doesn't have like an ergonomic curve. It's just a standard padded headrest with height adjustment.
Yeah.
So
it looks cool.
Right. And for what it is, I think it's comfortable. I did hype it up probably too much, but I do think it's a good headrest for the price that you're paying for sure. And I wouldn't be disappointed with it if I was using it. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it's like easy to rest your head on. I'd actually wish it went lower because I'd like to get it even down more in my neck, but I don't know that it's really made for that. But it's like fine if you're reclining, it's something to lean back against. I think it makes sense in the fact that it's like nice and flat, so you can kind of, like I was moving around a little bit and you kind of you're not really gonna hit a bad spot on it, but at the same time, it's not like super comfortable. So probably a C for me.
I mean, real leather.
If you're getting a headrest and you want an IKEA chair, I mean that's the one. So
for sure.
But yeah, I would say C for sure.
C tier. All right, next up, Nightingale CXO. This headrest it's interesting because it needs to fit you, which is the biggest factor. I actually like the previous iteration of the CXO headrest just because they incorporated a height adjustment design that also kind of like rotates the headrest, and so it's like two adjustments in one, which I don't love. And it also moves a little bit more than I like. But aside from those two factors, I actually really like the headrest just because it's cush, it's comfortable, it's in a position where you don't have to use it tasking, but it's really comfortable when you're relaxing back. This is actually a chair that I have and have used for a long time. I don't think that it has kind of the chops to be up there with an S or even an A tier chair. I'd probably lean more towards B just because of the downsides and because it fits me, but I think it's pretty solid overall.
I mean, the thing about it is this fits you. And it doesn't fit me. It hits about on my top of my shoulders. And so for me, this is the only chair in the list that's unusable. At 6 feet tall, I haven't met someone that actually can use it. This is F tier for me, and anybody that's my height or above. We'll find out if it fits Robert, but he's taller than me, so I'm assuming it won't.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't fit me at all for sure. I can't get it up high enough. I mean, which is kind of too bad because I purposely was kind of slouching to see if I could make it comfortable.
Yeah, it's comfy for sure.
Yeah, when I slouch down, then it feels actually really nice. It's a super padded, and so if you're at my height, then I think I have to put it at an F because I could never use this. But a little shorter, or if you have a shorter torso, then I can see that being really a comfortable headrest.
It's really too bad because the proportions of the chair are really odd because the seat depth and height are really conducive to tall people, but the backrest and the headrest are horrible for tall people because the backrest hits tall people in their shoulder blades and the headrest becomes unusable. So man, it is just a disappointment because if it just went a little bit higher and accommodated taller people, I think that this would probably easily be a C or a B chair for most people, or headrest, I should say. But there's just so many people that can't use it, which is the bummer of it.
And we've got a pretty decent communication with them. I know they're working on, I don't know if it's completed yet, a fix, because this is a known problem, is that it's too short. So look for that to come. And if you're on the fence about this chair and want a headrest, I'd wait. I just wouldn't get it right now, unless you're Ryan's height or a bit shorter.
Yeah, 5'10" or lower, it shouldn't be a problem. But any taller than that, just skip it and don't even roll the dice. Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we'd have to average this to like a D, just because if you can fit in it, it's good. But if you can't fit in it, it's an F. I don't know what to do here.
I'm going to put it in the F tier.
Okay.
With
No bonus points for the coat hanger for...
Oh. Does the coat hanger for off the headrest get it to D tier? Now,
honestly, the coat hanger is a downgrade from the previous version too, though, because the previous version had this big lip that you could easily hang stuff, and that one isn't as big, and your coat will hang off. It will fall off that thing. So it's not getting any bonus points for the coat hanger from me, for sure.
Yeah, F tier.
Moving on, Herman
right.
Miller Cosm. Which is an interesting headrest because it literally doesn't do anything, has no adjustment, completely built in.
Also interesting because it's a Herman Miller chair with a factory headrest.
Rare.
Yeah, super rare.
I have a hard time giving this a high ranking, even though I like it for what it is, just because it's so limited. I actually think it's comfortable. When you lean back, it definitely supports you in your curve of your neck. It has some flexibility and some give. I think that the mesh is a little bit abrasive on your neck and head. I would have to be more middle of the road with this one just because it is pretty limited. So probably somewhere around C for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the chairs in the list today that have a headrest that don't do anything, so they don't move at all, they're just sort of there, and there's a handful of them. I think this one's probably the most comfortable in an upright position and reclined, and it fits me well. So for those two things, I probably put it at a B tier just because I think it's like the chair. It's like this hammock thing. It's like really comfy. So if you can use it and you're comfortable in the chair, I could see it being super nice. So I'd go B tier for this. I'm comfortable with that.
So you guys are going to make fun of me for being the Herman Miller fanboy, but I think this is an A for me because what I like in a headrest is I like when I'm sitting up straight, I don't want it there. When I recline, I want to just be able to kind of sink into it. And this happens to just fit me right where I want it to be. And like you guys said, it's kind of that hammock. You can kind of hit it wherever and it's fine. You don't really hit the frame. So it's probably a low A. I mean, it could definitely be better, but I really like this.
So just a quick question for you.
Okay.
If it was made by Steelcase, that'd
I was
probably
going
be
to ask literally the same
B
question.
tier that I assume, right?
I mean, we'll never know. I guess we'll never know. But
This is Steelcase Cosm. This is a C tier headrest. Herman Miller Cosm, A tier, baby.
yeah.
All right. No, I get it. That's fair. I mean, it's the best at what it does for the chairs that we've used.
And I mean, it's integrated. It looks really nice, I think. I mean, it doesn't have like an obvious, this is the headrest. It's just kind of built in. So
definitely the nicest looking headrest we're going to see today.
Yeah.
For sure. So we go B.
Going
I think
B
that's
tier.
fair. That's fair. We'll put it above the OM chair.
We had an A, B, and a C.
There we go. What is this one? This is the random chair that you ordered.
Yeah, found this one late one night on Amazon shopping. The Realm of Thrones Admiral, which now we've been getting a bunch of pushback because they jack the prices up on it. This is an interesting chair because, well, it's got a huge headrest. I mean, the thing is it's the next chair on the list, the Freedom, is like equal in size. So, but oddly enough, I think this one is better than that. So height adjustment, some pivot. The mesh is more comfortable than like the ErgoChair Pro. I've sat in it more now just as I'm trying to get used to the chair. And it's tough because it doesn't really have any issues as far as like hard points for me. I can adjust it to fit me comfortably. So I probably put it like high C for me. And that's probably maybe B minus. It just depends. I probably have to spend a little more time in it. But yeah, I'd say C plus.
I mean, for me, I think it's a lot like some of the other mesh ones, except for it's not quite as aggressive as like the Akir, which I do like. But I don't like that when I can feel the bottom part of the frame when I use it, which made it a little bit uncomfortable for me. So I'd probably be maybe just behind the ErgoChair with this one because it's similar vibes, but I'd probably prefer the ErgoChair one just because I didn't feel the frame quite as much on that one. What do you think, Robert?
What I'm realizing is this video is making me think that I actually like headrests better than I thought I did, which is odd because this actually, it's pretty comfortable. It's so big that it's like, again, you kind of just find a spot you like. I'm not really hitting anything hard, even though I was kind of showing earlier that you can see there are some hard points in the headrest, but you don't, it's so wide that you don't really hit them. Again, it does what I like. If I sit up straight, it's out of the way. When I recline, it just kind of hits right where I want it to hit. So it's got to be at least a B. It'd be higher if it didn't, see how it's moving when I don't necessarily want it to move, which is always a downgrade, but I'd go B on this.
What was your grade?
I said like C plus, B minus.
Okay, well then,
I'd probably put it at C plus. You were in the C's, weren't you?
Yeah, I would be right about here. Robert would be here.
The hard
Right,
thing
C plus
I
is
have
fine.
is like, I don't think it's as comfortable as the Yes chair. I don't think it's as comfortable as the Cosm. Those are both up there. So I guess if we were B minus, but I do think it's more comfortable than like the LE9 and the ErgoChair Pro. So yeah, C plus is good for me.
Moving on to what Greg just talked about, Humanscale Freedom.
Yeah, the teaser there about the Freedom chair. Wow, this is one of those ones that...
The Freedom chair would get a completely different ranking for me if it didn't do the weird thing where it doesn't move with the backrest in unison and instead just stayed straight up and forced your head forward, just because I actually really like the curve. I think it's super comfortable and it's really big. So I would have a hard time thinking that someone would use it and think it's uncomfortable and couldn't fit the curve of their neck. I like the padding. It gets a little bit warm, and I do like that it has height adjustment. It's so bad when you recline and it's so uncomfortable that the functionality of it is going to tank the score for me, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a lot of the things you said are right. I mean, it's big. It has the potential to be super comfortable. It is. I think they overthought it when they did it, and they're looking at ergonomics when in recline and getting your eyes to look at your monitor properly. But all it does for me when I go to like 100% recline is create a crink in my neck. And I have a review that I did on this like 3 years ago where I talked specifically about how at 50%, it's usable for me, and I like it. Upright, I don't like it. Full recline, I don't like it. So, I mean, I'm going D tier with this, me personally. Robert likes his chair, though, so I'm curious.
Was that a D I heard?
Yes.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, I've sat in this chair a ton. This is one of my favorites. And I really like the headrest. Like, I get what he's saying. When you go full recline, it is starting to really push your head forward. But a lot of times I'll be kind of working in this spot right here, and it holds me pretty good where I'm like half reclined, and then it just keeps your head right where you want it to be. So it's pretty cushioned. It does slide a little bit when you don't want it to, which again is kind of a downgrade. But I mean,
What does it look like when you're fully upright? Can we show that?
So fully upright, then it's like not even, it's totally out of the way.
Okay.
So I'm not even really, I would never do this, which is okay. For me, I just like it, headrest when I'm back, but this is at least a B for me.
The headrest itself, standalone, is good. If you put that headrest on the Nightingale chair with that action on the recline, for me it would be potentially an A-tier headrest. But the function of it tanks it. It's not usable for me, and it's not going to be usable for a ton of people out there. And for that reason, it has to be a D, potentially an F. Just if a chair is unusable, for me it can't get above a D, and that's where we're at with this one. But the headrest itself is so comfortable that I can't put it in F. So I would say D+. That's where I'm at.
D plus D, and you gave it what, Robert?
I gave it a B. I mean, like if I were to pick a chair that I would want for like my home office, if I was just using it to like watch videos and stuff, this would be a high pick because I can still be comfortable and have my head pushed forward a little bit. So it's got to be a B.
All right, we're going to have to average it to a low C then.
I was going to say a D, but...
We have to factor in Robert's score a bit here.
Oh, yeah, Robert.
At least
gave
give me a
score.
high D. It has to at least be a high D.
Okay, D plus is fair.
I guess.
I think Ryan gave it a C minus.
We'll go C minus.
Okay.
Sidiz
T50. This is the less expensive Sidiz, not the $800 version.
This chair looks like $1 million
Yeah.
from far away.
Then
And
once you grab it and feel it, though, you know it's not $1,000 chair that it looks like. And the headrest is a perfect example of that. The one thing that I really dislike about the headrest is how flimsy it feels. And it has this like depth adjustment where you can tilt it forward and make it more aggressive, but it will never hold that position. And so it's a useless function to me. I think that the padding is pretty comfortable, and I can get it in a position on my neck without like feeling the frame or anything for it to be comfortable. It feels really flimsy and doesn't hold that forward position well. So I would have a tough time giving this one a high score.
I mean, I feel like you just literally read my mind on all of the stuff with this chair, because every time I touched it when I was using it, it just feels cheap. I don't know how else to explain it. And there's other chairs in this list that have similar build quality to their headrest, and they don't feel that cheap. Like, it just feels like light and flimsy, and I could never get it comfortable on my head. It was always awkward. I found the chair itself to be awkward too, but just looking at the headrest itself, it's usable but awkward. So I'm going D tier on this one for me. I'm going to find out what Robert thinks, being a little bit taller.
This has it's really hard to.
What?
Dude, you just break that.
Okay, this headrest is so hard to pull up that literally, look what I just did. I chucked it across the room. Good thing I didn't throw it at John. Let's put that back in. But really, it's very hard to pull this in and out.
I forgot about that on the headrest. It doesn't have anything to keep it in all the way.
I would almost want to do it out of the chair. Otherwise, you're going to do what I just did and chuck it, because it's so hard to pull it up and down. Which I guess the good thing is then it doesn't move up and down, but it's still like as soon as my head hits it, it's kind of moving all over, and it's so small.
Robert's vendetta against headrest just came out in real life.
Yeah.
You saw that. He murdered it.
It's just too small that you got to be sitting just centered to hit it just right. And even though it does move up, it's still, I mean, this has to be a D. I would never use this one personally. I would get this chair without the headrest. But.
So you're thinking D tier, I'm thinking D tier, Ryan's thinking...
I'm thinking D tier too, just because the only, I guess, redeeming factor to me is that it looks good, but it doesn't look so good that I could elevate it a tier or anything like the Cosm. So yeah. It's just a D tier headrest. I think it's probably above these two. We'll put it right there. Moving on.
IKEA Markus.
The Markus.
IKEA Markus. This is I don't like anything about this headrest. I can use it, but it pitches my head forward awkwardly. You can't move it at all. I can use it, so I go D-. There's not much to talk about.
Yeah, pretty short and sweet. No height adjustment, no tilt adjustment. A little bit of padding.
In the wrong spots.
The material feels decent. For me, it actually fits me, so it doesn't hit me in the wrong spot, but if it doesn't, it would be annoying for sure. It's just a worse version of the Jarvfjallet, and so I would have to put it a full tier, maybe 2 tier down from that.
We gonna F tier it? I get some hate.
I think for me, it's probably a D tier, just because I'd prefer to use the headrest on the IKEA over definitely not this, but I'd prefer to use it over these 2 chairs for sure. So D tier for me.
Yeah, D. I mean, there's not much to say. It's just like there's a little pad there if you're reclining, but it's like doesn't hit me where I want it at all, and you can't adjust it. I guess it's fine that it's there. If it wasn't there, you would just hit the top of the mesh. It's not really adding anything extra, but it probably looks better that there's a headrest rather than if it wasn't there. I'm good with a D.
D it is. Okay, I'm putting it right there. The Staples Hyken or Hyken. I've heard people pronounce it.
I don't think that's right.
I've heard it.
It's like
Hyken.
Hyken.
We're gonna go with Hyken. That's what we call it.
I'm pretty sure it's the Hyken.
I'd say this is an okay headrest, mesh headrest. The material's not great. Certainly lower end mesh. There are times where I can feel the frame just because it's not a huge headrest. But I will say that it holds its position decently for the price, I would say. Not super comfortable in my opinion, but I will say that it's definitely one of the better headrests I've used in that under $200 range. So if that's your budget and you really want a headrest, then I can see this being a decent option. But I don't think it could elevate to B or A, so I'd be somewhere probably around C.
Yeah, I think you pretty much had spot on. It's an inexpensive chair. For me, I found that I could get it to fit me pretty well without having any frame issues. Sometimes I noticed a bit of the bottom of the frame, but other than that, it's pretty comfortable. I found the mesh to be actually pretty comfortable too. So I would definitely put this thing in a C tier, at the top of the C tier probably, like around the Akir and the Realm of Thrones chair. I don't have any problem with it. It's probably my favorite feature on this chair.
Yeah.
Honestly, so.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those where it might move around a little bit when I'm kind of reclining, but that's not really a problem because you're kind of sinking into it anyway, so a little bit of a movement isn't really going to hurt the comfort level. I'd say a C is probably good.
Yeah.
I think if I bought this chair, I would want the headrest there, so that means it's at least a C.
I'm gonna go right here.
Boom.
Agreement.
All right.
C tier.
Look at us agreeing on that one.
Yeah, it was
That
good.
pretty
Yeah.
good. Steelcase Series 2. So this, if we were ranking, and I'm sure people would be disappointed that the gesture isn't here yet to put in this list, because that would be, in my opinion, the best headrest from Steelcase. This is number 2. But it's not one of those headrests that really will support your neck and head. It's more of just like a headrest. So you put your head back against it. When you recline, it's nice. I find it to be way more comfortable than the Leaps headrest. I would recommend this if you want a headrest and you want to recline in the chair. I think its only drawback really is that it doesn't stay up as well as it should. I think it moves a little bit too easy, but it's nice and padded. I like it. I probably have no issue, in my opinion, putting this at B tier, because it's better than all of them in C. It doesn't, yeah, I go B tier.
So this is one area where we're definitely going to disagree. Just I hate the headrest just because it's really firm to me. And I don't always love headrests that are flat like this one is, kind of like the Office Master chair we talked about earlier. And to me, it's kind of feels a little bit cheap just because it's a Steelcase product and it's not like the rest of the Steelcase products. It's like a better version of the Leap headrest, in my opinion, just because it's not pitched super far forward. So I'd have to put it above the Leap, but I'm still going to be somewhere around D tier or low C tier with this headrest, just because it's not my style. So
I'm struggling with this one.
S tier, huh?
Yeah, no, not S tier. If it would just stay up here, then this is one of the nicest headrests that actually are up on my head. So normally, like I've said, I like it when they're down here. This doesn't do that at all, really, for me. If it just stays up here and I'm reclining, it actually feels, it's hitting me at like just the right spot. It feels nice. But because it just keeps moving, that has to knock it down a little. So I would probably go C tier.
all right, that's averaging out to a C tier.
Look
We'll
at
put
this,
it right here.
running out of space.
We'll put it top of the C tier list.
Running out of space here. Okay. All right. So we've got Eurotech Vera chair. So this is another one of those headrests that doesn't do anything. This thing is just fixed in its position. And it doesn't sound like Ryan is super excited about this one.
Listen, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, this is a chair that we sell. We sell a ton of these chairs. If you called me and asked me if you should get the headrest, I would just tell you no without even asking any more questions. The headrest doesn't do anything. It doesn't move up or down, doesn't tilt. It's pitched forward aggressively like the Leaps, has a small amount of padding. The plastic doesn't match the rest of the chair. This is a prototypical F-tier headrest without question for me. All it does is dig into the back of my skull, because that's where it positions.
F-tier.
And so for me, it's completely unusable, and I don't really see any redeeming factors with it, and I think the chair is way better without it. So
Not wrong in a lot of the things he said. However, it fits me really well. And because of that, I like it. It fits my frame perfect, which is the problem with the headrest, because if you're not me, it's not going to fit. Clearly, Ryan doesn't fit him, and so he hates it. But yeah, it doesn't match the chair. It doesn't do anything. I mean, because it fits me, I want to put it in C tier, but I just would put it with a huge, asterisk on there. If you're not my body, then probably not going to work the same. So we do sell quite a few of them. People seem to like them. I don't know why. They must be all my exact height. They love them. So I go C tier.
I mean, the good thing is if you don't like it, it's super easy just to take off.
Yeah.
So, and it's not super expensive to add. So
it doesn't wow anybody, and
Right.
it doesn't move around at all, but I think it's comfortable for me, and that's what this is all about, in my opinion. So I'm going C tier. Maybe even B. What? I don't know. Like, I like it because it fits me. I'm telling you.
Robert, bring us back to reality here a
I
little
have
bit.
to go D.
Oh my gosh.
Because it doesn't
It doesn't fit Robert.
Right now, I mean, it's
doesn't
hitting
fit
me
him.
way down here when I'm sitting up.
Can you
So-
pretend that you're me just for a second,
So
and
if
what it
I'm-
would feel like if it were me?
If I'm like much shorter, like
Much
wow.
shorter.
Got him.
No, if I was
huge dig.
just a little shorter, then yeah, this is actually really nice. And the recline, like once I recline it, even at my own height, then it actually feels pretty nice. It's hitting me in a good spot. But just because of where it hits me when I'm sitting up, it has to be a D.
But if you reclined in the chair, it sounds like it's probably pretty close to an S tier.
Well, no. Then it's probably a B.
Okay.
But it's hard to rank it like that because it's like you have to rank, the whole thing. So
Sure.
it falls in the middle of a what did I say, a D. I guess you have to side to the bottom one because you're going to be sitting up a lot and that's going to be hitting in a bad spot. So.
Wow, D tier. Okay. It's getting rough out there.
I mean, this isn't surprising. It's the most basic headrest basically on the list.
True.
So
It's true.
except
All right.
for maybe the next one.
The SecretLab Titan. The thing is like I just don't love this chair, but I'm gonna be honest. This headrest,
What are you considering the headrest?
the foam part plus
The pillow?
yeah.
Yeah.
The pillow plus it's
High back.
high back.
Okay.
So and that all together. I don't love this when I sit upright. I just don't like the chair in general, but I don't love the headrest up. But when I get into like any type of recline, which I know a lot of people with this chair do quite frequently, I liked it a lot because it's got like a memory foam feel to it. It's super cush. I sink into it. The recline on this chair for me is a B tier for sure. Upright, not so much, but I'll wait for everybody else to give my final verdict on it.
Yeah, it's just a hard thing because I don't love the shape of the backrest. Like the backrest itself doesn't have a great shape for me, and the top of it kind of tilts forward a little bit and kind of pushes your head a little bit forward. So if it didn't have the pillow, this would be getting a really low ranking. But the pillow is actually really nice. The kind of the velour feeling on the outside, the memory foam, it's just feels like a high quality pillow, and it's certainly comfortable, and it definitely adds to the comfort of the chair, which gives an advantage over all the other chairs that don't have something like that. The problem is you just can't always use the pillow like Greg talked about, and it kind of slides around a little bit. I like the magnet system way better than the strap, but it still kind of slides around a little bit more than I would prefer. I'd still have no problem putting this maybe high C's though, just because for what it is and what it's doing, I think it does it pretty well. So it's kind of like the Cosm, in my opinion. It does what it does pretty well, and so I'd give it a high C, maybe even a low B for that.
Yeah, I think I'd go B because it is pretty. The fact that it slides around isn't actually the worst thing because it's not like it's clicking around. It's just kind of slides to where it fits. So I don't think that the sliding makes it a negative for me, which is unusual because normally I hate when they move around on their own. It's without it, it's like you're totally missing something because then my head just hits this hard part. So it's a really nice addition. I just would like never sit in this chair, so it's so hard. But it makes it like this is, to me, like we've said on the other chairs, this is the best part of the SecretLab chair probably is that
100%.
1000%.
I guarantee that we all agree there that this is the best part of this chair. So
Yeah.
I'm going B then. I think it's fair with a B on the headrest. Yep.
Okay, we'll throw it in B then. I think that's fair. For sure.
B tier. Look at that.
Two non-adjustable headrests in B tier.
All right, so this is maybe why everybody stuck around for the whole thing, because Aeron lovers rejoice. Headrests for your Aeron Classic and Remastered. The first one is the Engineered Now. You've spent a ton of time with these headrests. I gotta hear your opinion first.
The Engineered Now one, I think it's a good headrest. It feels solid. You get a bunch of adjustability because you have two different pivot points. The mesh feels good quality. I also like that the headrest is pretty big. This is on the H4 version only. If you get the H3 version for shorter people, the headrest is way smaller and it has a huge U-curve. I really probably wouldn't recommend that one, but the H4 one is good. And even though it's supposed to be for people taller than me, I found that it fit me. And so just from an overall headrest standpoint, I think that this is probably going to be somewhere around a B, maybe low A tier, just because I think they did do a lot of things well. Looks good on the chair, matches the chair pretty well. So overall, I think they did a good job.
Robert?
I mean, this one definitely, it gets nice and high for me, which is nice. It puts it right where I want it to be. I do feel that frame a little bit. If you get too far wide, you kind of hit it. And it's got a little bit of that slide on its own. Kind of, if you move around, it'll jump a little bit. But this is probably a B. I love the Aeron, as I've mentioned in other videos, and if I had one all the time, if I was sitting in, I would want to add this. So that gets it up in a B for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great one for tall users. I mean, it goes so high. It's got a ton of range on it. Super adjustable. I mean, again, like they said, I didn't really have too many drawbacks to it. I'd put it in a B. I think it's a solid B.
Yeah, I'd agree with that for sure. Good headrest.
All right, last one.
The grand finale.
Yeah, the Atlas. So, little background story real quick on this. If anybody doesn't know, this is made by people who were at Herman Miller. It's using the pellicle mesh from the chair. It's the same poly material for the frame. I mean, it literally, from an aesthetic standpoint, it matches the chair
exactly
as you would want it to, especially when you're putting it on a high-end chair.
The color on the Engineered Now headrest matches the Aeron, but the materials do not match.
Yeah.
On the Atlas, you're actually getting the same materials as the Aeron, which is why it's a little bit more expensive. But in my opinion, it's a pretty big upgrade to the Engineered Now, just because it kind of gets rid of the problems that you experience with the Engineered Now, like Robert talking about with the moving parts, and you got a little bit of play in them. With the Atlas, you can crank down all 3 adjustments really tight, and so it won't move. And I also found that you could loosen them up enough while still being tight to move them if you wanted and still be stable. I mean, if I'm just being honest, this is probably the best headrest I've ever seen, aside from the 8000, just because it doesn't have the padding and the ability to kind of completely get it out of the way. So I would say that for me, this could be an S or an A. I kind of need to think about it for another 30 seconds. Maybe Robert can talk for a little bit while I ponder.
Yeah, this is an A for me. That's why it was kind of harder for me to rank the Engineered Now, because I knew that I was going to have to level it up for this, because this is the one that I have used on the Aeron for some amount of time. And it, like Ryan says, I put it just tight enough so that I can still move it a little if I want, but lock it down so that it doesn't move unwanted. So it's kind of like, just like I've said before, if I recline, it's right where I want it. If I sit up, it's out of the way. It's there if I want it. You know, it's just like you can position it exactly in the right spot. So, I mean, I maybe would even go S tier on this, to be honest.
Wow,
but
you guys are crazy. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely at the top of the list when it comes to headrests for comfort. It's got a ton of range, both height and depth. It's got the pivot on it because it's the same material. I think that's the best mesh in the business without question. My only gripe with this is that when you buy an Aeron, it's like this piece of art. It's beautiful. This thing is kind of a contraption when you look at it from the back side of it to get all of that range. So it takes away from the chair for sure. I think that's probably the only reason, and I know people that get Aerons are all about aesthetics. I put it A tier just because it's not complete, but really a nice headrest for sure.
That's literally exactly what I've been thinking about for the last minute. I was trying to do the thing with the 8000 and think of what would I change on this headrest to make it better, and that's literally the one thing. If you could get rid of that all, whatever it is, plastic mat hanging down there and being so visible and taking away from the backrest view, then it would be S tier. Basically, if they could accomplish everything that they were able to accomplish with the Engineered Now's design, then it would probably be S tier, but you probably can't get that
full range.
Yeah, you're not going to get the full range and the full tightness. So there's a trade-off there, but it's still an A tier for me, and I'd put it above the Mellet. About as close as S as you're going to get,
yeah,
in my opinion.
Worth the money. For sure. I know it's not cheap, so.
yeah, from the front, I think the chair looks great, but from the back, it definitely, there's just too many of these bars that just kind of look, it just kind of kills the smooth look of the lines of the chair. But from the front, I think it's actually makes the chair look possibly even nicer.
So where are you putting it, Robert?
I'll still go A, because yeah, I think it could be improved, but
yeah,
it's really
All right.
comfortable.
There it is. Another S tier, though.
Yeah.
Wow.
What? Oh, you mean in the list in general?
Yes,
Yeah.
another S tier that we found. Lamia, not a real chair, but now we've got a real headrest. So
It's true.
all right, let us know what you think in the comments. If there's a tier list that we haven't done yet that you want to see, got to let us know in the comments, guys. Thanks a lot for watching.